Now, let's just dance in a happy little sky. And remember, this is your world. You get to make and break the rules here.
Sweet baby Jesus.
Holy fuck knuckles, I am high as a kite right now. All right, I'm gonna whack off again. That's right. That feels good.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Agent Psycho, aka ToSniper98. Now that we've talked about the best Rin face, let's move straight into the next video that I promised, where we'll be talking about Yang Yuhan, the newest foreigner added to NAFGO. Oh, wait, wrong server. But no, seriously, why the fuck do I have to wait 2 fucking years just to hear Yang say to me, fuck you, DW. So I guess while I smack my fucking face against my tablet screen for the next 2 years waiting for Chinese blue flame waifu, I'll have to settle for Hokusai's Daru in the meantime, I suppose. Katsushika Hokusai is a 5-star foreigner who debuted with the New Year's 3 events, being the headline SSR. And in case you didn't do the trial quest yet, which I don't know why you wouldn't, seeing that it gives you a free fucking ticket, Hokusai is actually the frickin' octopus that hangs out with her in her first and second stages. He also goes full Alien vs Predator mode on her in her third and fourth stages, which I'm surprised no one's made a dojin about yet. Or maybe someone already did, and I just haven't seen it yet. The actual waifu is Oe, his IRL Daru, so just remember that every time you loot her, you're always doing that shit right in front of her dad. Just be careful that one of these days he doesn't suddenly turn into Peter Griffin and start beating that ass.
Hey, knock it off! There's a kid back there!
I'm in danger!
And of course, daily reminder that Delightworks realized right after releasing Abigail that giving a white lolly the class of, quote, foreigner wasn't exactly a great idea, so they came up with Hokusai as a Japanese gaijin so that they wouldn't get flamed for potentially being hella bigots less than a month after they put out Abby. I mean, why else do you think Hokusai's never had an important role in any story besides her own damn trial quest? Well, unless you fucking count Summer 3 and Summer 4 as actual plot. And yes, before anyone gets triggered about this because I made a joke about it, I'm aware that DW isn't trying to roast Westerners with the whole foreigner class thing, or at least that's what they want you to think. Seriously though, why not just call the class outsiders instead? Anyways, back to talking about tentacle porn, I mean Hokusai. He, or she, is an alternate arts memer who can potentially MP loop and debuff the ever-living shit out of enemies if you get a good cycle of arts cards. And with her super effective mod, she's also a great choice for fights that make you go up against lots of man attribute enemies. First, let's actually briefly talk about the foreigner class itself, because I believe I made the mistake of not doing this for the Abigail video a month ago. Foreigners have no class damage mods, so as far as their attack ratings go, what you see is what you get. They have true class advantage against Berserkers, since the logic behind the foreigner class is that you become one if you make contact with outer gods or whatever, and either withstand the madness that you suffer, or you straight up just consume the madness yourself, which is pretty badass, while Berserkers are servants who've succumbed to the madness instead. But they have true class disadvantage against alter egos, which is why Melt and the Mecha Lizzes can bully Abby so hard in Salem. Strangely, foreigners are the only class in the game that can deal double damage to itself. I like to call this particular interaction, quote, reverse class advantage. It's similar to how Berserkers are also effective against themselves by dealing 50% extra damage to other Zerks, just like what they do to most other classes. But foreigners crank it up a notch and just beat the shit out of each other with full double damage scaling. There's probably some kind of Lovecraftian rivalry joke here that I'm just not getting that you Lovecraft fans out there might get. And lastly, foreigners also happen to deal 20% extra damage to Beast 3 Left, which is Demon Kama, who we'll see next year for NA. Kinda like how alter egos do 20% extra damage to Beast 3 Right, which is Demon Kiara during CCC. So in case you want to bully Demon Kama with a foreigner, it's probably not a bad idea, given that only alter egos and foreigners have any sort of class advantage against her anyway. Now onto her skills. Splatoon DLC's first skill is an evade with a 30% battery, which is actually a lot more useful than it probably appears at first. For one, it greatly improves her MP generation capabilities. She doesn't have bad MP gen per se, despite only having a 0.33% MP charge stat, since her arts cards are so strong with 6 hits on them, but the 30% battery does go a long way in making her feel like she has better MP gen than she actually does. Not only that, but because of her MP super effective mod that we'll discuss later, Hoku is actually a viable farmer in nodes where you have a lot of man attribute enemies, so the 30% battery alone can certainly help her fit into quite a few farming teams. And of course, it's also her hard defense skill, which is self-explanatory by this point. Her second skill is her main damage buff. It gives her a 3-turn 30% arts buff, along with the added effects of 100% buff removal resist and 100% debuff resist. Again, kind of like with Areshigal from the last video, you probably won't run into too many buff removal situations in Before the Lost Bells in this year's challenge quest smack us with a ton of buff removal gimmicks. But the debuff resist is actually kind of nice since it's the next best thing to having a debuff immunity effect, though it's not quite the same. But the fact that her arts buff is for 3 turns is very important, which I'll elaborate on in a little bit once we've gone over Hoku's entire kit. Her third skill is an install type skill. It grants all of her arts cards, including her MP, the ability to debuff enemies with 20% defense down stacks that all last for 3 turns. Her passives give her a bit of star gen and some extra debuff resist from the foreigner passive, some extra debuff success chance, a bit of extra arts performance, and some extra damage from divinity. The 2 star gen per turn is mostly negligible, but the extra debuff resist is actually kind of nice because what that means is you don't need to lure Hoku to still get over 100% debuff resist in case that's what you want. Territory creation and divinity are small little bonuses, nothing big, but still nice to have. Just like Areshigal, Microsoft Paint Simulator's MP is where things get really interesting. It's an AoE arts MP that has a super effective mod similar to Gil's Enema Elish or Mordred's anti-dad effects, but for Hoku, it's against anyone tagged with the man attribute. Because this is a super effective mod, it scales from 150 to 200%. This is as close as Hokusai is gonna get to having class advantage against anything that isn't a berserker, but then again, as far as foreigners go, this is a pretty big perk to have. Oh wait, now Young has this too! The biggest strength about Hoku's MP overcharge compared to most other super effective mods, however, is the fact that it doesn't just work against servants, it also works against any regular mob that's also tagged as man. Since in FGO, all the mobs you fight against also have their own man, earth, or sky attribute. Oh wait, Young can do this too, and to literally anyone who's got a burn debuff. But then again, she's only single target, so never mind, not exactly the same. Okay, I'll stop letting Young hijack this video before Owie fucking smacks me over the face with her brush. Some examples of man attribute mobs that you probably use Owie against are Skellies during bone hunting quests, the Night Enforcers for metals in Camelot, the Soulless Dudes for chains also in Camelot, the Yakuza hoodlums and hornets for fluids in Shinjuku, Oprichniks for frost in Lost Belt 1 when that comes out, the Chibi Nobus in the Guda Guda events, the Ghosts and Undead in K&K Rerun coming up soon, and strangely the mechanized infantry bots for Gears in America, in case you prefer the Chicago node over the Barrel Tower one in Shinjuku. And even without considering the additional mobs Hokusai is good against, the plurality of servants in FGO are tagged with man, which is all of these. This is as close as you'll ever get to making one of those free real estate memes with Hokusai. Now that I'm looking at this graph again, I just realized that Young also has a man attribute and she's a foreigner. Hokusai, please no bully Young! In essence, what Comic Kit Waifu offers is the potential to arts meme the fuck out of the game. Her skills give her the ability to get her first MP up faster than she should with her battery and strong arts cards, and once her MP is ready, she can smack people with the brush with better arts card performance and a total of 60% defense debuffs if you can get off an arts brave chain. The crazy thing about her third skill is that if you're lucky and get all of Hokusai's arts cards 2 cycles in a row, you can cap out on the game's defense debuff limit at 100% because the game actually won't let you inflict more than that on any given target. And as a cherry on top, all of these defense debuff stacks last for 3 turns. This means that once Hoku gets her first MP going, she has a big opportunity to capitalize on it by stacking more defense debuffs and increasing her own damage output over time within 3 turns. Now throw in her anti-man attribute mod and her foreigner class star weight, which is on par with archers, so it's higher than average, and you can get something like this in Naya's video, where an MP1 Oe can take on the second half of the DV Rerun Challenge quest by herself with a good setup. That feel when the arts meme hits just right. You can also MP loop to a certain extent from a farming perspective with Octo Waifu. With a Tomo and Nero Bride setup, you can actually get Hoku to refund back up to 70% charge, which is perfect to go along with her 30% battery. However, you do need to plug in Waver afterwards to give Hoku the extra charge and some extra attack to help her clear wave 3. Though keep in mind that this is a pretty fucking whale-ass setup with MP5, Hokusai, and max skills and bond CEs. Speaking of other servants, let's talk teammates for C2. While she's got higher than average attack rating and her second and third skills to improve her damage output, as a foreigner, Hokusai might not always have the luxury of class advantage at her disposal, so give her damage buffers, especially people who can give MP damage buffs like Santa Goodsiv. In fact, because of what her game plan looks like, which is to debuff people constantly and keep hitting them while they're down, which actually makes her sound a lot like Tama bitch, awkward. Oe is one of those servants where their best form of defense is just to kill everyone as fast as possible before they get to do anything, so support buffers are probably her most desired kind of teammates. Just buff stack, kickback, and enjoy the art show like you're going through the Louvre. And as for craft instances, naturally you want to give Cecilia damage CEs. Ideally they should be MP damage CEs, like Holy Night Dinner, so that you can buff stack with her more effectively. Or, if you really want to make Hokusai smack the shit out of people, Heaven's Feel or Black Grail if you have them. You can also use her as a crit foreigner if you give her Star Gen support. Remember that Oe has a Nier Automata deck, and having an extra Buster card definitely bumps up her damage output if she doesn't have her arts buffs active yet. So adding crits to her deck means that she'll get more out of her Buster cards, despite not having any buffs for them on her own. Plus, she can charge her MP twice as fast with arts crits too. She's supposed to be a DPS anyway, so even though she doesn't have any crit buffs of her own either, using her this way isn't necessarily a bad idea in my opinion. And she can make use of her foreigner passive this way, even if it is only 2 stars per turn. Her own bond CE gives her 30% extra MP damage and guts for one time that revives her with 20% HP. Since there are videos of Hokusai being able to arts meme certain challenge quests and even solo them to an extent, this CE could actually be quite useful, but again, the lack of stats means that you're better off bringing an MP damage CE or another sort of DPS CE instead if you do have one of those leveled up and available. She can arts loop better with proper team support anyway for the most part, unless you give her like a star gen buff as part of her solo. Just like between Lartoria and Erish in my last video, I'll briefly go over the comparison between Abby and Hokusai, since they are 2 foreigners who got released within a month of each other, so naturally people want to know who's better or who's worse or if it even fucking matters at all, which honestly it doesn't. Abigail enjoys the perk of being much more immediately useful to newer players due to her flexibility as a hybrid support, as I emphasized in her video. Conversely, Hokusai is a rigid DPS who needs good supports for the most part to do what she does best, which is damage. So from a new player perspective, Hokusai might not be as immediately useful because they can't tap into her full potential due to the lack of support servants that they'll inevitably be dealing with. But as time goes on, or to experienced players with stabilized accounts already, Hokusai will likely be more useful because these players can tap into her full DPS potential, or at least a lot of it. And so because of this, the meta tends to favor Hokusai over Abigail, though both of them are still very useful in their own rights. Perhaps ironically, Hokusai works better than you might expect with Abby support, and for those of you fortunate enough to have been able to roll both, try the 2 of them out together and see how well they do. Nobody expects the Foreigner Inquisition! So, in summary, Degenerate Tentacle Enthusiast is a hard DPS servant whose MO involves slapping defense debuffs on people with her big ass brush and beating them over the heads with it until they fucking die. And for being a foreigner DPS, she can surprisingly be used in a variety of ways, such as a crit foreigner, challenge quest memer, farmer, or MP looper, or maybe even a bit of everything. Throw in Tomo, or Waver, or Nero Bride, or whoever else can give her the buffs she needs to keep smacking bitches with her paintbrush, and she'll be more than happy to make a dojin about you, though she charges extra if you commission her to make it about you and her. But remember, arts meme is best meme, and that's all you need to know about Japanese Bob Ross. Thanks for watching. Next video is on, fuck, I don't know, it's fucking DV rerun time. Deuces!